The City of Phoenix holds community budget hearings throughout April, allowing residents to comment and make suggestions on the city manager's trial budget before final decisions are made. This public discussion is among the reasons the city's budget so closely matches the community's highest priorities each fiscal year.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much. I'm Jim Waring. I'm the councilman for District 2. I'm here with Felda Williams. Felda, introduce yourself.
I'm Felda Williams, District 1 councilperson, and I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. This is your city, your dollars, and we need to hear from you.
We were waiting for an extra minute because Ed Zerker, the city manager, was here. Ed, are you going to be the master of ceremonies tonight?
I'd be happy to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. There's an accident on I-17, so sorry about the slight delay.
Thank you. All right, good evening. Thank you, Councilman Waring, Councilman Williams, for hosting us here in this great facility. There was a little accident northern on I-17, but we got through it. What I welcome you to this is actually our last budget hearing. So you are the faithful ones who've made it through all the way. Some of you have been to more than one. We have 15 budget hearings throughout the city. We started 3 weeks ago, and we're concluding, would you say, with the best? Mm-hmm. Okay, I heard that from the councilman. And we're just happy that you're here with us. The trial budget is designed to get people talking about what we want to do with our budget for the city, and it reflects the kinds of things we want to accomplish. This is a more complicated trial budget than we've had in the past. I'll explain that just a little bit, and then we have a video that will also talk about it. But I hope you have a chance to get a booklet. If you'd like one, raise your hand and we'll have someone from budget bring you one of these. But this is really helpful to follow along. It's always complicated to put a budget together for a city that has a $3 billion budget. But the second thing that's happening is we are negotiating our labor contracts with our employees. Our employees have given up 6% of compensation over the last 6 years, and they still have 4.2% of compensation that is still in concession. And so we're negotiating with the labor unions about that right now, and that has not come to resolution. So that's an unknown. We made some assumptions in the budget, but we have to come to a resolution. But the third thing that hasn't happened before has to do with our property taxes. We're going to explain it in the video, but our property taxes do two things in the city. Part of them pay for things like police officers and operating a center like this for the general fund, but another part of our property taxes pay for the debt service on buildings like this one. Voters approved bonds to build a building like Paseo Highlands above Center, and then we borrowed money to do that over a period of time, and our part of our property taxes pay that debt service, pay that loan. Since the real estate crash of 2010, we have not collected enough property tax money to fully pay our debt. But we've been using some money we set aside in the really good years of the 2000s so that we didn't have to raise property taxes. But now that pool of money that we've been using is about at the end. And so we have some decisions to make about how we're going to continue to pay the debt on buildings like this, and police stations and fire stations, and big pieces of equipment. And that's contained in this budget. So the different thing here is there are options. And if you look on page 5, there's a chart that tries to walk you through those. On page 5. So there are 5 different ways here. Option 1 is to raise the property tax to pay that debt service. Option 2 says if we don't want to raise property taxes, but we want to pay debt service this way, then what other taxes would we be willing to raise to do that? And there's 3 options there. The food tax, the sales tax, or a tax on the city services bill, or what we call the water bill. But if that isn't acceptable, there's a third option, where we could use the money that we have available this year for other things, and we could put that on paying our debt service for 2 years. We couldn't do anything else, but we could do that. If that doesn't work, there's option 4, where we could use some of that money for 1 year and do a few things, but not a whole lot of things, and we wouldn't raise property taxes, but we wouldn't have as much money to do other things, and we'd also have to come back to you in a year or two for this whole conversation again. That's option 4. And option 5 says, if you don't want to raise taxes and you want to give employee restorations, do those things, then we would have to cut services. We'd have to cut some things. And all that is contained in the last part of the book with some different options. So what we're hoping you'll do is take a look at this and give us your thoughts about those options. What do you think? Would you be willing to pay more property taxes for the things that are explained? Would you rather not do property taxes? What is it that you'd like to do? And those are all explained in those options. So, we're here tonight to hear from you, as Councilwoman and the Councilman said. This is for you to tell us what's important to you, what you like and don't like here. We record all this. It's shown on Channel 11. It's put on YouTube for people to watch if they'd like to. We also take notes, and the minutes are distributed to all the other council members who couldn't be here this evening. We have another budget hearing going on at the same time down in Central Phoenix. And they get to see all of the comments. And then in 2 weeks, we will have a proposed budget based on all this input and feedback that we've got. So that's what this is all about. It's about hearing from you. If you'd like to speak, we ask you to fill out a card so we can call your name. And then when you speak, we'd like you to come up here and speak here so that everyone can hear you, and also so that we can capture you on the television camera. So, with that, we have a video that often takes a little more time to go through this a bit more, and then we'll go. So thank you again for hosting us, and we'll be back after the video.
Hello everyone, and welcome to your first look at the City of Phoenix 2016-17 City Manager's Trial Budget.
Input from our residents is very important, as your ideas can help shape what will end up being the final budget for the next fiscal year.
The final budget is important because it provides the plan for how the city will spend taxpayer money and how services that you depend on could be impacted.
I think the city manager's trial budget provides a great pathway for us to continue providing the outstanding services that Phoenix residents expect, and gives employees the opportunity to continue to provide that great service every day.
Why is a balanced budget important? It's required by state law and city charter. In this trial budget, there is a $60 million surplus that can be used to improve essential services that will benefit the community. Examples include public safety needs, employee compensation, and restoration of some programs and services. So how does the funding work? Funding for the city budget comes from 3 sources: the general fund, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds. Examples of general fund city departments include police, fire, the library, parks and recreation, and streets. Enterprise fund departments include aviation, water services, solid waste services, and the convention center. Special revenue funds account for designated sources of money for a specific purpose, like sales tax dollars for the hiring of police officers and firefighters, and funds for public transit.
So how did we get here? Under the leadership of the mayor and city council, we are glad to say the budget is balanced.
The mayor and city council have really set the tone and direction for our city staff and employees to be focused on innovation and efficiency.
Here's just some of the ways that happened. First, eliminating 119 vacant positions and other administrative savings actions that will result in an overall savings of just over $11 million. Second, there is a one-time carryover of $25 million from last year's surplus. Also, the city is saving by making needed adjustments to the workers' compensation fund and has sold extra police helicopters that were too expensive to maintain. Did you know that Phoenix has reduced administrative expenses and has the smallest number of employees per capita in over 40 years? And while still providing great services, the city has reduced authorized staffing levels by more than 2,700 positions. That is 16% since 2007. Also, city staff is constantly finding innovative ways to save money. Did you know that since 2010, we have saved $106 million in taxpayer funding? Some examples. The municipal court. It saved almost $600,000 by eliminating a criminal courtroom and a civil courtroom due to lower court volume. Plus, a new process with copy services. By reducing the number of printers and copiers citywide and securing more competitive rates with copy contracts, the city should save hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. Now to rising pension costs, which continue to be an important issue. Thanks to the leadership of the mayor and city council and actions taken by voters, the savings from reform efforts will reach $1.1 billion over a 23-year period. And what a difference a year makes. Last year's 5-year forecast projected a deficit of up to $58 million. But with guidance from the mayor and council and the efficient work of city staff, that deficit was eliminated without reducing services to the community.
Mayor and council also expect us to provide great service, and that's what the city employees work to do every day.
One of the biggest challenges the city faces has to do with how the city will continue to make its debt payments for voter-approved capital projects.
We're at a place where we need to make tough choices, like any of us during the recession where you may have lost a job or your wife may have lost their job and your income changed and your bill stayed the same. So the city of Phoenix is at that point now.
Several options will be discussed, including increasing Phoenix's combined property tax rate. Phoenix has had the same rate for 20 years. That means since 1995, residents have paid $1.82 per $100 of assessed value for property tax. The rate has gone unchanged while the city's population grew and important services developed, like new fire stations, parks, and libraries. The city has been using a reserved fund to help pay off that debt. This has relieved homeowners from increases in property tax rates, especially during the recession.
What other cities in the valley, after the recession, they started to, when their assessed valuation changed, the values of their properties changed, they started to float their rate up and down so that they levied the same amount of money, brought in the same amount of income. What the city of Phoenix did, we thought that we would give our taxpayers relief. So we kept the rate at $1.82.
In the meantime, the city had debt to pay, so a reserve fund was used. This relieved homeowners from increases in property tax rates, especially during the recession. But now that well of backup money is finally running dry, and the city needs to raise an additional $37 million to pay the debt service. Otherwise, Phoenix's strong credit rating could take a hit.
We are taking in less money, and now we still have the same payments. Our payment on our mortgage is essentially our debt service. That's what we have to continue making. At the same time, we have other sources or other services that we provide. Those costs have also increased, and our ability to make those payments has gotten tougher and tougher.
The budget lays out 5 ways to solve this. A detailed explanation of these options are in the trial budget summary booklet, handed out at all public meetings and online at phoenix.gov/budget. Option number 1, increase the combined property tax rate by 35 cents to $2.17. This would equal an additional $4.25 per month on an average single-family home, about 14 cents a day. Even at this rate, the average single-family homeowner will still be paying less than they did back in 2009.
We could continue to provide services, infrastructure, pay our debt at the lowest, cheapest possible cost, and maintain a very strong bond rating, and to provide our citizens with good services for many years to come.
Option number 2, generate $37 million in other ways by increasing a local sales tax, a food tax, or perhaps an addition to your city services bill. Option number 3, use all of the $60 million surplus to provide property tax relief for 2 years. That means no money would be available to restore employee concessions or add community services, including those cut in previous years. Now keep in mind, with this option, the city would still need to find a solution to this problem in 2 years, and this could hurt the city's strong credit rating. Option number 4, use some of the surplus money to provide tax relief for 1 more year, along with some of our reserve funds. But the issue will have to be addressed again next year. Now with this option, the city could improve some proposed services, but not all. And this option could hurt the city's strong credit rating.
Some of these other options are short-term, which means they're only going to provide a solution for 1 year, maybe 2 years. And it really is just kicking the can down the road, and we will be back in this situation in a couple of years asking for a solution from our citizens.
Option number 5, cut $37 million from the general fund by making significant cuts that would directly affect the city's ability to serve residents and business owners. The city manager has outlined $44 million in services from which to choose. This includes cutting $14 million from the police department, $10 million from the fire department, more than $2 million in library services, and $6 million from the city's Parks and Recreation department. In a service business like the city, dollars translate into the people who provide the services, like 911 response, recreation programs, senior and youth services, and more.
Since 2010, we've been drawing down our fund balance reserve for our GO bonds, and we're at the end of that. So this is the last year that we can use that reserve to pay our debt service.
How will the city tackle this debt service situation for the long term? The plan is to refund and restructure bonds as long as rates remain where they are now. Until then, one of the mentioned 5 options must happen in order to pay the city's debt service for the facilities we've built. This is critical in order to keep the city's strong credit rating, which lets the city borrow money at a low interest rate to fund projects that are important to you. A look at these 5 options are on page 5 of your trial budget summary booklet.
Here's a look at the new services proposed in the trial budget. Many residents feel that protecting the public should be the city's top priority. The mayor and council agree it's critically important to keep everyone safe. That's why public safety and criminal justice amounts to 72% of the general fund in this trial budget. The new budget adds $2.4 million for the first year of a 3-year, $11 million plan for Phoenix police officers to start using body cameras.
Well, body cameras mean a lot of things. Safety is one of them, transparency is one of them, trust is another thing. For our residents, it allows them to have greater confidence in their police department.
The budget would also allow the department to hire a director of employee assistance and wellness.
Our employees are our most valuable asset. We need to make sure we take care of our employees. By hiring this position, it allows us to do that.
Now to the fire department. The budget would spend $2.8 million in one-time costs to replace the obsolete Emergency Transportation Billing System, known as EPCR.
We are the last large city in the state of Arizona to move forward with EPCR.
Electronic records will let our paramedics spend more time on patient care and less time on paperwork, and make payments from insurance carriers more efficient.
The latest technology for us to do our jobs more efficiently, protecting information of the community, bill efficiently so the taxpayers are getting revenue back into the pockets in order to provide services to the city of Phoenix.
The budget also calls for spending $1 million to begin rebuilding the road to North Mountain, along with fixing the radio tower to make it meet industry standards. The radio tower is critical to the city's public safety radio system. Now, to dedicated public safety special revenue funds. Because these funds will be balanced next year, the budget includes the hiring of 130 police officers in 2016-2017.
Other than 2015, we hadn't hired any police officers for almost 6 years.
The council also approved a plan to hire 36 firefighters next fiscal year.
We have been fortunate over the last couple of years to be able to hire minimal amounts of firefighters. This will allow us to fill all of our vacancies.
Now, let's look at dedicated Phoenix Parks and Preserves initiative funds. Money would be used to maintain new dog parks, recreation centers, and playing fields. From the Development Services Fund, which is paid for by building permit and inspection fees, is this proposal. The city is seeing a huge spike in construction, which is great news. To keep up with demand, the budget calls for adding 8 new positions to meet the needs of all the growth. Out of the Solid Waste Special Enterprise Funds, the trial budget calls for adding 15 positions and equipment needed to support curbside green organics, diversion, and illegal dumping programs. This will ensure that Phoenix continues to be a national leader in keeping waste out of city landfills. The budget calls for a few additions that directly will help the members of our community. They include new funding to support the city's continued effort to get veterans off the streets and back on their feet.
So the proposed funding will support peer navigators who help veterans living on the street make all the connections they need to make to get into housing and stay housed.
And money to add staff and supplies for after-school programs for disengaged youth.
This funding would really allow us to increase our programming by offering STEM programs, physical activities, as well as interaction between the youth and adults in many of our city parks.
Looking ahead, one of the biggest challenges to the general fund continues to be the cost of employee pensions. The trial budget reflects an increase of $15 million in civilian employee pension costs. But since the mayor and city council took action on pension reform and the voters made their voices heard, these short-term increases will slow over time with a savings of more than $1 billion over the next 2 decades. Now to the police and fire pensions, which will go up $21 million. This is the result of a state Supreme Court decision. Increases in future years are partly because of other pending court challenges and system funding issues. Also, proposed reforms could help reduce how much the city will pay in the future. Then there's employee compensation. For 6 years, city employees have been part of the shared solution of our budget issues, agreeing to almost 6% in cuts to compensation. 4.2% of that is still in effect. The trial budget proposes to responsibly restore some of it, 2.6%, or $44 million, over the next 2 years. This is an investment in our most valuable resource, the workers. As a service business, the city depends on good workers to provide outstanding services. Keep in mind, the budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like.
The budget is really for the people of Phoenix, and so for it to be the best budget possible, it needs to reflect what people have to tell us. And that's why we're out to listen to the residents in the trial budget.
In summary, the trial budget has several options, including solving the debt service issue by raising the combined property tax by 35 cents to $2.17. This would allow the city to use surplus money to add critical services to our police, fire, and other city departments. It would also allow the city to restore some concessions made by city workers 6 years ago.
15 public hearings will take place this month across all council districts, and you are encouraged to attend. Make sure you pick up a budget pamphlet outlining all the proposals and options at any of the public meetings or online at phoenix.gov/budget. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach us by phone, call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using #PhoenixBudget. Thank you for attending this budget hearing and being part of a very important process. The City of Phoenix is committed to its mission of improving the quality of life in Phoenix through the efficient delivery of outstanding public services.
All right.
2016 terrain denied from GMC. This is the precision of
Oh, we
professional.
can watch a game.
That is not how we are balancing the budget. Yeah, no, we didn't get paid for that, unfortunately.
For $199 per month. Cedar Valley GMC dealers.
It's a good song, though.
All right. Thank you so much. I do want to acknowledge we have several city employees here who are not being paid to be here. There are a lot of management employees who are here to listen. I want to acknowledge especially our Assistant Police Chief Mary Roberts is here, and we have several police and fire, and also lots of other city employees from all the departments. If there's specific questions, they're here to help you. So I want to thank them for being here. We have about 23 cards. People have been really good about limiting to no more than 3 minutes, so that we have time for everyone to get their thoughts and comments and questions out. And so we'll just get started. And our first speaker will be Jack Davis, and Jack will be followed by Karen Young.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. We appreciate your interest in the input from the community. Ed, you've done a marvelous job of putting together a lot of options, and it appears that the first option is probably the most appealing. One question that I have is that supposedly or allegedly, we didn't have a financial problem until the real estate values started to plummet. And now we see our real estate values starting to increase. And at some point, that's going to level back out. At this price point of 217, is it possible to make this into a floating number so that as those valuations increase, the assessment would be restored back to a smaller amount? Is there some consideration for a flexible pay? Because at some point this becomes a windfall of huge capital down in future years.
Jack, that's a great question, a great point. So in fact, yes, we would go to a floating rate, and our best estimates right now is that 217 would be the peak. And so if the property value recovery happens as has been happening as is expected, what you say should happen is that it should be able to float down. Now, just one note, it's not possible to have a windfall any longer like we did in the early 2000s, because state law has changed, and so we cannot collect any more in property taxes than our debt service is in any year. So there's no more the rate collecting more than our debt service.
Does the reserve fund that we are now providing back capital into, does it have a ceiling? Does it have a cap as well?
The reserve fund does not have a ceiling, and in fact the reserve fund, because of that state law change, the reserve fund cannot grow anymore. But we have put a floor on the reserve fund so that we can keep our bond ratings, and that floor is about 6 months of operating of debt service payments, which is the minimum we think it should be is $75 million. We'd actually like it to be $90 million, but 75 is the minimum.
And one final statement. I would really like to see those who serve us, the fire, police, and all of those departments, human services, all of them, who graciously took a reduction in pay to be restored back to their original. I think that's imperative. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Karen Young will be followed by Craig Tribkin.
My first question to you is, how come you keep coming down here and we keep telling you the same thing every time you have a budget? Am I right? Have we heard this before? Yes, we have, because I stood up here once before. But I appreciate all you're doing, particularly for the fire department. I'm a fireman's kid, and he's retired, and he's using the services, so I appreciate what you're doing with them. My question is, what are you going to do if you close this center and the seniors don't have anywhere to go? They come here for breakfast, they come here for lunch, they come here for interaction. Where are you going to put them when they don't have any place to go? You know where they're going to go. They're going to be down in lines trying to get free food to take it home. They're going to be calling 911 because they're distraught. But and the other part of this, how many parents are here that bring their kids here? We got them. I see you nodding. What are you going to do with those kids? You and I both know. You and I have grown up in this city. We know what happens when they don't have any place to go. Where do they go? They get in trouble. They go to gangs. They get in drugs. They get involved in the wrong things. We have basketball going on here almost every day. We've got public officials coming in and exercising here. We got the fire department here. We got the policemen upstairs. Sometimes they come in, and where are they at? They're running the track. They're using the basketball. They're doing the workout. What are you going to do with them? But back to the children. That's a big part of me. They're grandchildren to many of us that we bring our grandkids down here. So if you close this center, they're not going to have anywhere to go. But I will say this, we've proven you wrong. Every year you brought this to us, and we've showed you why this center needs to stay here. The other thing is there's firemen, policemen in this room. Some of you come here to be here. We appreciate the deputy being back there, but we know what's going to happen. And please, if you can find any way, don't close this center. And I could go on, but I won't.
Thank you. Craig Chubkin, and Craig will be followed by Rosalie Hurd.
Hi, thank you very much for having this hearing. I appreciate it very much. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Regional Homeless Shelter downtown and support option 1 of the city manager's trial budget. We serve downtown, we serve 4,700 unduplicated individuals in a year. Of those 4,700, only 62% stay for less than 3 weeks. Excuse me, I said that backwards. 62% stay less than 3 weeks. And in the option number 5, we're looking at a $52,000 cut to the downtown regional homeless shelter, and that represents, and I've got some information, that represents another 7% cut, which since 2009, the regional homeless shelter has suffered from approximately 20% cuts, so that would put us at over 25% cuts since 2009. And this area out here may not experience directly the level of homeless problems that we see downtown. You do. Okay. I won't tell you that we're going to close beds. The city manager's budget says that 300 services would be denied to 325 people. We're not going to close beds, but that number of 2/3 of the people staying less than 3 weeks, that number will go up because we won't have the money to provide the services we need. Central Arizona Shelter Services provides really a hand up, and it provides extensive services to people, which is why they only stay for 3 weeks. They get into housing, they get jobs, they move up, and again, 4,700 unduplicated people, different people in a year show up there. And I appreciate your support of option 1 and the city manager's trial budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosalie Hurd, and she'll be followed by Gary Carnicle.
Hi, I'm Rosalie Hurd. I've been resident of Phoenix. I'll drop it down. I've been resident of Phoenix since 2010. I lived in Surprise 2009, and then I was living with my daughter and helped raise my grandson while she was working. And then she got a divorce. She got a job out in Phoenix, so she was commuting. So we moved out here. 3 of us moved out in an apartment. And then 2011, when he was 3, she wanted him to be with other kids, and they have a on-campus right on their grounds at where she works. So we went online, and I saw this bus center, and it was close. So I've been here since 2011. And then 2012, I became a first-time homeowner, and it'll be 4 years in September. And I like coming up here. A lot of things to do. I've been on site council, and right now I'm a backup to the treasurer of the site council, and I'm also on the bingo committee, proceeds coordinator. If you close the center, where are the seniors going to go? Or then the lunch love them are just up here, just get their, could be their main meal for the day. I could be one of them someday. I'm not at that point now. I can do some cooking of my own. And closing the centers, not opening till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and no programs. What are we going to do? Right this afternoon, I played with some seniors playing Scrabble. Tomorrow I'll be here for an exercise program and playing Mexican Train after lunch. And if they didn't have those things to do, I wouldn't have any place to go. And I like the friends I've met here. And then I also started using the taxi service. My car, when it's not running, I like the taxi. I can come here. And if you eliminate that, and a lot of the seniors do come, always have a lot of, come in for, the center's closed, where are the seniors going to go then? I like the programs, and a lot of friends here. And not have the center open till 3 o'clock that's kind of ridiculous. We need this center, you know, people depending on for, well, different activities. There's always constantly, whether it's seniors or the kids, I pass by here weekend, that golf park is loaded with kids. Or they have parties up there back and forth, because I'm not too far from here. We need this center for the kids as well as the seniors.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to clarify, the proposed budget does not propose closing any centers or rec centers, but it is in option 5 if other options aren't chosen, option 5 would do some service reductions. So far, I haven't heard anybody say they like option 5, and that's what I would take from those comments. But thank you for supporting. Okay, thank you, Rosalie. So Gary Carnicle, it's good to see you.
I am here, sir.
I know you by email, and now I see you by in
I saw you down at the city council meeting,
And
yes.
Gary Carnicle will be followed by Don Titus. Thanks, Gary.
Number one, I'm for an increase in our property taxes. I belong to, got a lot of friends from my Marine Corps days around the country. And you know, Phoenix has got about the lowest taxes of anybody. I've got 5 kids with spouses, and I've got 16 grandkids and 8 great-grandkids. And my grandkids, I've got 5 of them are married. We're spread out in about 8 states and 13 cities. And this is the cheapest place to live. And we give them a lot of services, but we've been having to cut a lot of services. I'm all for an increase. And I've got my retirement, I'm a retired small business owner, and I got my Social Security. So basically I'm on a fixed income. But by golly, we do need an increase. Also, on 123 that's coming up on the ballot, I'll push everybody to support that. In good faith, a number of years ago, I got involved, and a gentleman senator by the name of Ed Cirillo and we worked real hard. We got something that's known as the DROC program. The cops love it. And I've got 2 blood relatives that belong to Phoenix PD, and they just love that program. But as my son, who's been with the force for 27 years, said, 15 years ago, he said, Dad, we can't afford this thing. It's going to bankrupt the cities. And that's one reason we've got a lot of shortfalls. So, by golly, make sure you vote to get 123 in. We do need to get rid of DROP.
I think that's 124, right? 123 is education.
Oh, okay, it's 124, I'm sorry.
124 is public safety pension.
Yeah, 124, I'm sorry. Do you know how many people we have on full-time release from the unions and labor unions in the city of Phoenix?
Not off the top of my head, but it's not really full-time release anymore because of court rulings that have changed how that works to distinguish between union business and city business.
Okay. I'm not sure of the numbers. I do know that Phoenix PD has 2 sergeants and 4 officers, and that's all they do. And by golly, every taxpayer is paying their salaries for not doing police work. We're paying for their pensions, for their medical and all this. And I think that has to be looked at. The labor unions, labor organizations, yes, they need representation so that the employees don't get it socked to them. But those organizations should be paying those people. And if they're going to have bennies, they should be paying for those benefits. Got a lot of money right there. I see that they've got provisions to hire 130 officers. When my councilman, when Thelda's husband retired, I believe we had 3,300 police officers. And the population was a heck of a lot smaller than it is today. Right now, I think we're, I don't know what, about 2,200 officers?
2,800.
2,800 officers. And the population's gotten immense. And here we got 2 sergeants and 4 guys that aren't doing police work. There's a lot of cops making a lot of money on overtime. And the ones I've talked to, they'd like some time off to be able to spend some of that money. Because we're short on people. And that needs to get corrected. Like right now, you know, earlier in the year it was coming out, we're about 300 officers short. Actual figure, it's closer to 700. I'm aware of this because I was very active with the FOP for a number of years, and I'm past state president for the FOPA. But these are things that are eating up a lot of our money. And there's other people that should be paying for them. We do need to get more police officers, and that's one reason, yes, we do need property tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, union representatives, when they're doing union business, are using donated time from other officers.
We won't get into that here.
Okay. Grace Witt did not wish to speak, but said she's a volunteer and she likes being a volunteer. Thank you. And Don Titus is next, and Don will be followed by Keith Preston.
Okay, my first question is, I noticed that all of these meetings were 6 o'clock at night. That eliminated anybody working afternoon shifts. A lot of older people do not like to get out in the evening. So before, they always were scattered during the day. So you eliminated a lot of people even being able to attend these meetings, which to me was kind of funny. That's the first thing. Next thing is, both my son and my grandson are both city policemen. So I do know what they go through. A lot of hours with very little help. And they made big, big concessions during all this. And the city promised them so much, oh, we're gonna stand behind you, we're gonna do this, and it never happened. You know it, and I know it, and most of these people do. But they've stood behind you, and it's about time for you guys to step up to the plate. You know, there's such a thing as fair play, and I don't think they've got fair play. The next thing is the senior center. I belong to the senior center, Deer Valley. I'm a volunteer there, I put in many hours, I help out. But I think the city is gonna have to look into the future. We've got a lot of people retiring, a lot of them. And they need something to do, someplace to go. And I'm not saying that you're responsible for entertaining people and anything else, but a healthy environment for both the young people and the elderly. You've got to give, when you're offering companies to come in, one of the things you can offer them is things for the children, safety, good schools, and a place for the, as they retire, what they can expect, that they can get a good foundation for the city to participate in things. And I don't right now see that happening. I would hope it does, but also some of these people are going to, like they had said, are going to have mental problems if they're sitting around just twiddling their thumbs, nothing to do. And also for the young adults, these are their parents. All of a sudden they're supporting them physically, financially, morally, everything. And if they have a place that their mother and father could go to and participate in functions socially and everything else, when mom and dad come home, they're not sitting there, maybe irritable, crabby, they have nothing to do, and the kids are coming home with their children, and now it's tension, tension, tension. The senior center can provide some of that. It's like a family. Well, most of them will tell you, it is like a family. They watch out for each other, they help each other. That's what the volunteers are doing. We work a lot of hours, and it's because we're trying to help other people that we hope will help us when we get to that stage. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. We have heard a lot of comments about needing to have daytime hearings, and so we will work on that next year to make sure that we have a variety of times. Thank you for that. So Keith Preston is next, and Keith will be followed by Rick Neymark.
I'd like to thank you for your past support for arts and culture grants and other initiatives of the Arts and Culture Commission, which for over 30 years has championed the development, promotion, and sustainability of Phoenix's vibrant art and cultural community. Just a personal note, I moved to this area about in 2005, And I was so glad to be in the city of Phoenix. I'd lived in all the other suburbs, and I finally had a house in the city of Phoenix. But I had a Glendale zip code, and I was bummed. And then a few years later, the post office changed. Now I've got an 850 zip code. I'm back in Phoenix, so I'm glad to be here. And I'm a proud resident of the city of Phoenix because as I drive around the streets and I see artful treatment of things that don't necessarily need to be treated in an artful fashion. For example, this beautiful center. It could have been a plain old block building and still served the same function, yet it's artful. And this doesn't happen by accident. It happens from a city that has a vision, that wants to do something with class, that's going to set it apart from other communities. I'm really glad to be a part of that. We support the city manager's proposal to partially restore the previous made cuts to the arts and culture program. We also support the city manager's trial budget recommendation, options 1 or 2, which includes a revenue increase. If options 1 or 2 are not approved by council, we do not support cuts to cultural facilities, management, and property management services, which will negatively impact operations at the Phoenix Art Museum, Phoenix Theater, and the Children's Museum of Arizona. And for those in the audience, just to let you know, the arts and cultural business here in the city of Phoenix is a $300 million enterprise. The nonprofits and arts and culture organizations annually generate $14 million in local tax revenue. Arts and culture organizations create nearly 10,000 full-time equivalent jobs in Phoenix, and a vibrant cultural environment is critical to attracting new businesses, engaged employees who are concerned about excellent quality of life for their families. And in closing, the next time you walk through Sky Harbor, Terminal 4, look down. You'll be walking on some of the beautiful artwork that you won't see anywhere else. I hope this continues. Option 1 or option 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rick Neymark will be followed by Brian Moore.
Good evening. I wanted to do 3 things. I live in District 7, and I did go to a District 7 budget hearing, but I thought I'd come up and say hello to both of you as well. First thing I want to do is say thank you. Thank you so much for having open public budget meetings. It's really important, and not everybody does that. And thank you for all your investments in the community, Proposition 104, and also being wise with our money, as you talked about in the video with pension reform and efficiencies, etc. So I want to talk about the big picture budget problem. I think the big priorities are to maintain existing services, to begin to continue to add back some of those services that have been cut, because there are many that are not even close to where they were before the downturn. And I think you need to continue to compensate employees fairly and appropriately, and it's up to you to determine what that means. But you're in the service industry and you need to make sure you're paying people appropriately. So my view of the way to do that is option 1. And the reason for that is the challenge that you have is you have debt service that you have to pay one way or the other, and that debt service was something that the voters said, we want those facilities, and they're already built a long time ago, maybe before some of you were even in office or when you were in your hiatus. You got to pay that bill, and the property tax is the way to pay that bill. And I would disagree with one thing that Jack said, because I actually think you have to do better than that. You have about $130 or $140 million of projects that are locked in jail right now. They 10 or 15 years ago, the voters voted to have those projects happen. We're talking, $20 million in parks projects and human services projects like another senior center or family service center, things like that. I think if you're going to raise the tax, allow it to float up, you should allow it to float up enough to also unlock those projects and get them built for the community, because it's an investment. And those investments, by the way, help raise people's property values. So if you're going to raise the cap on the float for the property tax, I would encourage you to consider that, because there's a lot of really important projects that people have been waiting 10 or 15 years for. Look at the list. It's pretty incredible. Not all of them are still needed, but a lot of them are. The last thing I want to do is very quickly, I'm a member of a new group called the Friends of Phoenix Public Art. And different than the Arts Commission, we're very focused on the condition. I mean, they're focused on it too, but we're only focused on trying to raise some money privately, but also encourage the city to put some money in to make sure that we maintain what we already have. So, you have public art at the Deer Valley Airport. You have public art at Reach 11 Park, and the bridge is over the 51. We have a percent for art ordinance. We made those commitments and we built those things, but they deteriorate. And the need on an annual basis is something like $100,000. And we only have about half of that budget in the city budget. So I would encourage you, if there's a little bit of extra money as you're moving forward with the budget, to add things back. One thing you're missing desperately is maintenance of that investment. And if you don't maintain it, it's going to deteriorate, and then people are going to be mad that you let it fall apart. So consider that as you consider adding things back, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Brian Moore, and Brian will be followed by Dax Schulman.
Good evening, Mr. Zerker, Mr. Waring, Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Williams. My name is Brian Moore. I'm a fire captain and paramedic on a heavy rescue squad, 103 in Phoenix, located in Maryville. I'm also an executive board member of United Phoenix Firefighters. I am a labor representative, but in my role it's a little unique. You see that I work with active and retired firefighters that get diagnosed with cancer. I met with 2 last week. We have had about a dozen within the last month or so. Help our members navigate the healthcare process, worker compensation process. I got plenty of work. I got a text 15 minutes ago from one of our firefighters that was seriously injured a few months ago and is trying to get some care and treatment that's needed. But that's not what I'm here to tell you about. I just want to let some folks know that had some questions about what labor representatives do and representatives of the associations. But what I want to talk about is our role as firefighters with the city. We've been partners for a number of years. We've helped with Transit 2000, the 2001 bond program, 2006 bond program, Parks and Preserves initiatives. And we worked with Governor Ducey and Senator Lesko to pass, get Senate Bill get the 124, Prop 124 referred to the ballot, and the other Senate bill that made changes in the pension system, which will positively impact the city financially over the long term. So we ask everybody that they vote yes on Prop 124, as the other gentleman stated earlier. But in the last several years, we've taken 6% in voluntary concessions. We've had a small amount restored. We see city revenues increasing. We see funding that could be available for cameras and the computer system for the fire department. But we ask that because of our work with the city, we've been true partners along the way, that we seek that kindly ask for the full restoration of our concessions from the last few years in this upcoming year. We ask that you support what Councilman DeCiccio and Nowakowski did, and that was full restoration to public safety employees of those concessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dax Schulman. Will be followed by James Harris.
Good evening. My name is Dax Shulman. I have been a resident with the city of Phoenix my entire life. I grew up 7 houses down from Fire Station 31 on 56th Street in Thunderbird. I went to grade school here as well as college, and I'm a taxpayer. I've been employed by the city of Phoenix for approximately 10 years. I work for the Phoenix Fire Department. There has been a long-running debate as to what firefighters and current city employees make within the city of Phoenix. Supposedly, most of us making well over $100,000 a year. This is nothing but half-truths and whole lies. I have never made $100,000 ever in my 10 years, and most employees here tonight will agree. I started the academy off as a firefighter recruit at $12.48 per hour. That was in December 2006. Approximately 12 shifts later, I was involved in an Engine 21 crash where I fractured my neck, had to have reconstructive surgery on my face and my eye. That is the same station that firefighter Bradley Harper worked at. After that, it has taken me 8.5 years to obtain my current pay rate of $22.50. Just like all city employees, fire and public safety agreed to pay reductions, retirement contributions being cut, and furlough days in 2010 with the promise that be restored in 2012. That was not the case. We have lost a total of 4.2% compensation. In addition, 197 of 205 Phoenix firefighters were drastically underpaid for approximately the last 4 years, adding even more to the 4.2 compensation cuts, more than any other employee. I'm not asking to be given a pay raise, just giving back what is rightfully ours. What I have here is a factual contract from Costco Wholesale that will prove that we are not overpaid or that we make $100,000 a year. This contract right here states that basically anyone could walk up the street and make $13 an hour compared to a Phoenix firefighter recruit starting the academy at $15. The basic level Costco employee full-time will be topped out in less than 4.5 years compared to 7.5 years of a Phoenix firefighter, and will make $23.15 an hour compared to a Phoenix firefighter at $22.50 as of today, my current pay rate. Furthermore, a cashier at Costco after 4.5 years will make more than a 7.5-year firefighter paramedic at $24.85 per hour compared to $24.80. These same employees have goal raises just like our merit steps. It is no different than any other company, just the wording of the language. Even more, some members of city council say that we get longevity raises. Again, this is not a raise, just a benefit after being a topped-out city employee that has reached their limit of pay on the pay scale. Costco Wholesale, according to this handbook, has the same benefit with even more compensation than that of an average Phoenix City employee. With less than 10 years on the job, they will each get $5,000 a year. With 10 to 14 years of service, $6,000, $7,000 with 15 to 19 years, and $8,000 a year from Costco Wholesale with 20 or more years, thus resulting in a pay of $27.65 per hour for a Costco employee. Last, there's talks about raising property tax or even making more cuts to public safety. Well, my question is this: isn't that just robbing Peter to pay Paul? If you give us our concessions back but then raise property taxes, we are already adding to the loss that the employees of this great city have incurred. Again, we're not asking for a pay raise. We just want the city to stop recanting on their promise and honor our MOU contract instead of an IOU contract. To start under-promising and over-delivering instead of over-promising and under-delivering. And last, to start taking care of its employees and stop taking advantage of them. Thank you.
Tom Henry did not wish to speak, but had submitted a card supporting Dax Schulman. Or are you Tom?
I'm James Harris.
Yeah, James Harris is next. Tom didn't want to speak, he just had supported Dax in his comments. So James Harris and James will be followed by Chris Crowley.
I just want to say thank you to our council, city manager. Thanks for allowing us to be here tonight to do this. I'm a native Phoenician, born and raised here. I've worked Phoenix Fire Department for half my life, for 25 years. I love what I do. I love my city. I can't think of living any other place than in the Valley. There's no other place for me to go. It's an honor to serve. It's an honor for all of us to serve. The promise that I've made to you is the same one I would expect for you to make to us, is that during the times when we were going through the economic crisis, I could look around and see everyone's faces and the people that we were serving, and they were hurting. And I said, hey, we need to do something too. We need to do our part. We need to all suffer together. Conversely, I would like for us to honor our commitment to our public safety officials. There were some concessions given with the expectation that when the economy turned around, they would be giving back. Now, I think that we should always support our public safety folks. When I go to someone's home, I've got one thing in my mind: making their day better. And that won't change. And I'm sure it's the same way for the police officers, men and women who answer that call. One other thing, I know we have some veterans here. When we think about compensation, it's not just us we impact. I have two charities. One's the Phoenix Rescue Mission, been given to them for years. You know, my wife said, honey, we can't give to them now because, you know, we're going through a tough time. No, we're going to write the check. You know, we're not hungry, they are. And the other is the Disabled American Vets. I forgot my little commander's card. They'll send you a lot of things in the mail saying thank you for what you do. I just want to impress upon you folks tonight that there are not a lot of money-hungry, greedy public safety guys with big union bosses or whatever, however we like to be viewed. I'm a family man. I have 2 kids at ASU. They volunteered. We actually rented park space from here. It's not just this guy with the helmet on that you support. You support that whole family structure that's going out and volunteering. They both volunteer their time. They're busy ASU students. Volunteer their time to coach football teams. They weren't paid, compensated, and well, you know how that is. Sometimes it falls back on daddy as well to support their efforts. When you give to us, it goes out in many different ways. I want to say thank you. Please give this serious consideration just to restore what you saw fit to give us 6-7 years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, James. I have 3 cards that actually didn't wish to speak. I did want to just clarify something Dax said. I don't think people are saying that firefighters are making $100,000. That's an average compensation, which is the cost of everything. So it's salary plus benefits, I think is what that number is. Just to clarify, I don't think it's about saying that you're making that much money. Chris Crowley did not wish to speak, but said, please restore pay and benefits for police and fire. Lori Berline did not wish to speak, but said, full restoration to all employees. Raise property taxes as needed. It is shameful that you're balancing the budget on the backs of the dedicated employees. Matt Bowers did not wish to speak, but says, I believe the concessions made by public safety should be restored. Also, body cameras are too costly, especially when it comes to public information requests. And so the next speaker is Jeff Crockett, and Jeff will be followed by Jim Edmondson.
Good evening. You know, we talk about budgets, and I never hear anything about city waste. I work maintenance in the Water Services Department, and it is unbelievable, the waste. And example, we've started a new purchasing program that it takes months and months to get parts, so we have on-site contractors, we have them do it. So first of all, we just lost our contract bid price, and then they're marking it up so we can get the parts quicker because our system has failed. And this has been going on. For example, I transferred to my newest location in August, and I'm still waiting on parts for a pump that's under contract. They should be here in weeks. And it will wind up going to the on-site contractor, and there we go again. I don't understand how we can do that. And something I've never understood either, my years in the Navy, my years Navy ship repair afterwards. Budget, use it or lose it. There should be a reward for not using it all. You should get rewarded back that, hey, you guys did good job. We're gonna take care of you for taking care of us. But no, I see equipment that we don't even need, but use it or lose it. It's ridiculous. Don't understand that. And something else that bothers me, I'm taking furlough days. I cannot work every day of the year, every work day, 2,080 hours, but we're hiring more people. Well, that makes no sense. To me, furlough equals one thing. You got too many people. If you're making people take time off, apparently you got too many people. You surely shouldn't be hiring more to make them take time off too. I don't understand that. And the last thing I just run across this the other day at work, and it's, okay, our cleaning contractor on site, okay, they're getting a raise every year. They're getting a 2% raise every year. So we're gonna take better care of our contractors than we are our own employees? That makes absolutely no sense to me. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jeff. And let's you and I chat a little bit afterwards. I'd like to learn more from you, please. Jim Edmondson will be followed by Jason Stokes.
First of all, Ed, Zelda, thank you for having this meeting and allowing us to attend and giving us the opportunity to talk. As a citizen of Phoenix, a taxpayer, and as a retired employee from the city of Phoenix, look, nobody likes taxes. Nobody likes increases in taxes. Nobody likes higher taxes. But I think a lot of us have understood the fact, especially the last few years, how tough it's been with personnel resources, how almost impossible it's been to maintain the level of excellence and service to all the citizens that we have to serve. It's gotten to the point where you really have to take a good look at everything. And as a taxpayer, citizen, I don't have a problem, one, paying my fair share of taxes. And obviously, the options that were put before us tonight, I mean, guys, the only option is option one. Everything else is a Band-Aid, and within 18 months to 2 years or earlier, we're going to be coming back trying to patch things up. Critical infrastructure is vital for a city our size, especially public safety, police and fire. And from the police side, which I did over 30 years, you know, pick your number, but we're over 600 vacancies. It's gotten to the point, personnel-wise, equipment-wise, everything-wise. It's become a hazard sometimes to the safety of our officers. It's become a hazard sometimes to our response times, to the citizens we serve. And this is absolutely vital and critical that we start giving more financial support to our critical infrastructure. In 2010, both police and fire, the unions voluntarily, team players, gave up a lot of concessions to help out. And I think it's about time we as citizens rolled up our sleeves, kind of helped them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Jason Stokes, and Jason will be followed by Barbara Heller.
Good evening. My name is Jason Stokes. I too am a City of Phoenix employee. I'm not a police officer or a firefighter. I do work in a public safety capacity, and I'm here to support proposal number 1, property tax and full restoration to all employees. I would like to take a second to thank all of the city employees that are here today. I don't know that Mr. Zerker pointed it out, but maybe I just missed it, that they're not on overtime. They're just having a very long day. So for all of our parks people that are here keeping this facility open, thank you. I love this view because we can see the community out here using this park right now. As the display showed, 2,700 positions have been cut since the economic downturn. The employees are cut to the bone. It's not just police and fire. While I respect what the jobs they do immensely, they do not do it alone. Their cars must start when they get in there. Their computers must turn on. Their paychecks need to be cut. These are kind of important things. And 2,700 people less are available to do that now. I believe approximately 200 more are scheduled to be cut in this budget, or at least in the proposed budget. That's very tough. In terms of these meetings, I do appreciate the process. I'm a native of Phoenix, resident of District 2. I spent a lot of time living in District 1. All of my kids have gone to and graduated from Deer Valley School District, with the exception of one who's in high school right now. We're part of your community, and we appreciate the opportunity to come out, and we certainly love to see the citizens come out and support us. This process has no value, however, if our elected council members ignore what the overwhelming consensus of their constituents is. And that so far, if you go on the website, which is another wonderful thing to be able to see all around the city, what you consistently will see is your citizens are demanding quality services. They want good after-school programs. They want good senior programs. They want safe neighborhoods with good police and fire. And they want their water to be clean. They want all of these things, and they're coming out in numbers to tell you they will pay for it. This idea that we have some high level of taxation is not what we're hearing from the community. So we would appreciate everyone's support, especially the members of the council, in supporting full restorations as well as the property tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Heller will be followed by, who wishes to speak here? Steve Berline.
Thank you. Well, once again, we're here, and I have a long speech, but you've heard most of it. I don't work for the fire, I don't work for the city, but I do believe that the city officials and all the employees, law enforcement, fire department have bent over backwards to help you guys balance your budget year after year after year. What is this, 6 years now? I think it's time you give full restoration back to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb. Steve Berline is the last card to speak. I have, unless there, oh, there's another one? Okay. Before Steve, we have Bobby Gomez, who did not wish to speak, but wrote in support of Phoenix Fire and Police. And Daryl Kriplian did not wish to speak, but it says, I believe all employee concessions should be restored. So Steve Berline, and Steve will be followed by Will Buvadas.
Thank you. Council members Williams and Waring, thank you for your time, we appreciate it. And our city manager, Zerka, thank you very much. And staff for being here, we really appreciate this. My name is Steve Berline, I'm a captain with the Phoenix Fire Department. I'm also the president of the United Phoenix Firefighters Association. I'm not a full-time union release guy, firefighters don't have that. Because it was brought up, our union release time is donated vacation time anymore, so anytime we're off, our members donate their vacation time to us for union business. But I'm a captain on a ladder one. I've been with the Phoenix Fire Department 26 years now. 6 years ago, there was a budget deficit, and the city came to the employees and said, we need money. And the employees stepped up. We took concessions 6 years ago. 2 years ago, there's another deficit, and we stepped up to the plate. We did the right thing, and we took further concessions. And here we are today, and there's a budget surplus, and it's time to restore our concessions, 4.2. That's not money given, that's money loaned. And we did the right thing, and the city's time of need, and now it's time for the mayor and council to step up and restore those concessions to the employees. For the firefighters, we're running over 40,000 calls a year more than we were just 2 years ago. And we have 72 fewer firefighters running those calls. Our career has never been more dangerous today than actually I've been a firefighter for 30 years now. Active shooters, you used to never hear of anything like that. Hazardous materials. And the city of Phoenix is a big city. It's we have more risk. But over the years, Phoenix firefighters have fallen off down the rungs of the ladder in average pay compared to the other cities around the valley. Our captains fall to number 8 or 9 in the valley average of pay. So these concessions have been real. W-2s are less than the year before. They're real cuts. And it is time, and the city has it in the budget to restore these concessions. So that's what we asked for. And let me make it very clear. The parks and libraries, these community centers, they are very, very important to your firefighters. We truly believe them. But we can get it all done. We can take care of everything. You cannot just continue to cut without restoration. So it's time to restore, pay back to not just firefighters and police officers, but all employees, and do the things you need to do to generate more revenue to take care of the parks, the libraries, and the community centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Will Buvadas will be our last speaker. Before that, though, Eric Cohen did not wish to speak, but Eric said, I support restoration of City of Phoenix employees. I support increase in property taxes. Will Buvadas.
Thank you. My name is Will Buvadas.
I'm a Phoenix police officer. I'm also the treasurer of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. A couple of points before I start. One, just to let you guys know, DROP went away in 2012. Prop 124 does nothing for DROP. All new employees hired after 2012 do not have DROP. And also, all release time for Phoenix police officers is paid by the officers themselves. There's no tax money used in that. But let me get back to my remarks here. You know, this is probably the 4th or 5th budget hearing I've been at, and I'm pretty tired by this point in the process. You know, I'm proud to be a Phoenix police officer. I'm proud to be a resident of the city of Phoenix. You know, unfortunately, I don't live up here. You know, I live down at 67th Avenue in Lower Buckeye. I live in a minority neighborhood. My kids go to a school that's 90% plus minority students. I love it down there. I'm very involved in the community. The community services are very important to the residents down there, so they are here. I would argue that down there we're more underserved. In the precinct down there is probably over 50 calls for service holding right now. But our men and women are tired. I mean, they are tired, they're demoralized. I mean, it's 6 years of concessions. It seems like every year it comes around at budget time, it's talking about either more concessions or cuts to services, but magically, by the end of the year, they have a surplus, and it seems like the same thing happens over and over and over again, pits the employees versus the citizens, versus taxes, versus services. We have watched all the budget meetings that have happened to date. There's clearly in the city overwhelming support for increasing revenues, primarily through the property tax, and also to full restorations of the concessions. That's the least that they can do for my guys who voluntarily, just like Steve's guys did, gave up their pay over the last 6 years. I have full confidence. I mean, I think all of us in this room, everybody in the city is sick of all the political bickering on the council. I mean, every single vote now seems like it's 5-4. It seems like we have two just engrossed camps on the council. And what I would urge is that tomorrow in E-session, you guys get together and figure out a solution that works. Figure out a solution that works. I'm sure if you gave direction to Ed and to Jeff Barton, our budget manager, they're both very smart people, they could figure out a way to make whatever solution you gave them work and be acceptable to everybody. That's what I would encourage you to do. The employees are tired. The citizens are tired. They want their services. They're okay with the property tax. And the employees, all employees in the cities, deserve their concessions back. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the cards. Susan, any more? That's all the cards? Yes, ma'am. One more. Thank you. Patricia Dean.
Yes. I hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but my name is Patricia Dean, and I'm speaking to you tonight as the wife of a firefighter, the daughter of a police officer. And when we talk about these individual firefighters and police taking these pay cuts and working these furlough days, it goes beyond them. It goes to my family. It goes into the community. I volunteer in our schools, in our many different charities, and I hear the same thing. You know, we have a beautiful city, but how do we want to be known? Do we want to be known as a city that doesn't take care of its people and its employees? I have friends whose children are old enough now, they're looking into the fire department, the police department. I know that they can go to other smaller cities and risk their lives and get more pay than they do here in Phoenix. They can get better benefits. And it's sad that I would encourage them to do that because our city council people can't get it right and take care and keep their word. My family has given, we will continue to give. Okay, this isn't something, it has to be in you to go do this job and to be married into this job. I ask you to please keep your word, restore full pay, and enough, really enough, get it together. And I'm for increasing property taxes. We can't continue to keep saying, we're not gonna raise your taxes, we're not gonna raise your taxes. We have a lot of needs, our city just keeps growing and growing, and we want the best of the best. We want people to stay here and live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Last chance for anyone who hasn't spoken who would like to. All right. We appreciate it very much. Again, as I said, The next step will be May the 3rd. We will present to the council a proposed budget that the council will vote on May 17th. Before we close, I'll ask Councilwoman Williams if she would like to say some final words.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming and for all the speakers. I know that we have a lot of passion, but this is a great city, and I believe we have the best employees anywhere in this valley and probably in the country. I think they earn more than they're being paid. So I appreciate all your comments and your support and telling us which options you would prefer, because we want the city to continue to grow. We want it to be the best facilities. We want great senior centers. We want great parks. And I think the comment made about if you do away with senior programs and the kids programs, what do you have? Well, you have a big mess, because that's when you need more police officers and you're going to have to double the number of firemen you have. We don't want that. We've been there, done that years and years ago. We've made the changes, and so I think this is very positive. I think we're going to see some good things happen. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you to Councilman Waring and Councilwoman Williams for hosting. Have a great evening. Drive safe home. Thanks. Thank you.
You have been watching a community budget hearing held recently in Phoenix. For questions, comments, or ideas, please visit phoenix.gov or call 602-262-4800. You can also send feedback through social media by using #PhoenixBudget. This video can also be seen online at phoenix.gov/PHXTV or youtube.com/City of Phoenix AZ.